Hello and welcome to the 4th week of the European Challenger Series Summer Split. I'm Richard Paul's-Cam. This guy is James O'Leary.
This guy? Also, whoa, excitement. Do I not get like a name anymore?
Nah, budget cuts. Unlucky, friend. So let's get straight onto yesterday's results. In the first game, we had Mousesports going up against Overclockers and took it to them.
They did. In our second game of the day, Gamers 2 took down Denial in maybe the first real upset we've had this season.
Yeah, definitely. And then in our final game, Stress, Team Dignitas EU took down Ex Nihilo. Maybe not too much of a surprise in too many people's minds. But with only 3 games remaining in the round robin, the 4 playoff spots have been locked in by Team Dignitas, Denial, Gamers 2, and Mouse.
Unfortunately for Ex Nihilo and Overclockers, that means that while they can't make it to the playoffs, they now play spoiler perhaps for how seedings go into the playoff bracket.
Right, and now onto today's schedule, where our teams will be playing on the other side of the rift. First game will be Mouse up against Overclockers UK, Denial versus Gamers 2 will be our second game, and then rounding out week 4 will be Ex Nihilo versus Team Dignitas EU.
So, if you want to catch up on Tuesday's games in full, or stay up to date with rosters, compete in fantasy, check any of the leagues on the road to Worlds, there's all of that content on lolesports.com, so make sure you check that out.
All of the things, Stress. But without further ado, let's get into our first matchup between Mousesports and Overclockers UK. And let's start off with Mousesports roster to kick things off. Beansu in the top lane, Dan in the jungle, Sayo in the mid lane, with Cedrian and Mountain in the bot lane, AD carry and support. And to me, Mouse have a lot of potential. They have all the components of like a good team, but then they just make mistakes on the macro level.
Yeah, I have to echo that sentiment. And so much of their macro-level mistakes seem to come in picks and bans. And it's because Mouse have this weird semi-meta style. They'll take aspects of the meta, like the poke, different champions in mid, in bottom lane, that we see from the LCS teams, but they're still trying different things, and they end up with weird things like Renekton jungle in a poke composition, which doesn't really fit, unfortunately. So, Mouse have a couple of big picture-level issues. I think their micro game is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, they kind of have like the meta shotgun approach of just throw everything out there and see what sticks and what doesn't. But turning to the red side, it's Overclockers UK. Kubon in the top lane, Tabasco in the jungle, with Takefun in the mid lane, and Selva and Libic manning the bottom lane. And Overclockers coming to this week 0-6. They've had a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Now they're not looking so good. The jungle change didn't change very much from Kondi-san over to Tabasco. And then Selva and Takefun, at least to us, seem like shadows of their former selves when we look at the spring split.
Right, we actually took a look to compare them because it didn't seem like they were at this level in the spring split. It seemed like they were further ahead. Specifically, we'll start with Selva when you look at his stats overall. At this point in spring, so we took only the first 6 games of the split so that we could have a fair reflection. 4.13 KDA in the first 6 games of spring. Summer, this time around 1.38 KDA, a massive hit in Selva's stat lines. And unfortunately for Overclockers, it's the same story in the middle lane. Takefun in spring, 3.33 in the first 6 games of spring. Summer, Takefun, 1.27 KDA. Just overall, things aren't clicking for Overclockers, and they feel a lot more like Mouse looked like in the spring split.
Yeah, there's also other considerations like Takefun. The meta's kind of shifted away from him. Assassins are no longer the best thing in the mid lane. Takefun was a big assassin player. Now we're on 5.13. Lots of changes. We expected a lot of changes as well in terms of compositions, the picks that were coming out. But then there was no real changes in our first game.
Right, there wasn't really anything that was particularly different. You see the Azir, the Twisted Fate. A lot of bans went towards the bottom lane as well. AD carries, Kalista maintained her ban rate. So it was an odd one in yesterday's games and really was characterized by the fact that it was all about the junglers. Dan, in the jungle, to begin this game off, had a very strong control over the Overclockers blue buff. That ended up resulting in the kill advantage as Kubon tried to kind of contest, but he was on his own and gets caught out, gives Mouse the good start to the game.
Yeah, just trying to contest by himself didn't go too well, but then Mousesports go for the second dragon, and then their preemptive setup facilitates a kill onto Tabasco. It was just a great vision setup.
Yeah, good vision setup into the dragon. Overall, Mouse with the lead in gold, now in dragons as well, and with this significant gold lead, they actually managed to just completely take the jungle away from Overclockers, and at this point, Mouse kind of start making a couple of weird decisions, because we're down in the bottom lane. Dan is trying to split push on Rek'Sai. It's fairly standard. Drags 3 people to the lane, but then the rest of his team start doing Baron, which ultimately ends up okay for them. But basically because they just brute force the team fight. So weird decisions works out for MOUs in the end.
Right, and then the next 10 minutes, actually before we get to that, take from what are you doing? You're not Zed, you can't jump out of there. But in the next 10 minutes, MOUs get 3 turrets and lock down the aspect of the dragon. And then from there, Dan, tunnel visions. Again, I'm a split pusher. I'm actually the jungler, and there's not a whole lot I can do. I can take this turret and then I just run away.
Yeah, weird decisions, but overall ended up working. I mean, split push Rek'Sai is something we've seen a lot, just the way that Dan was kind of drawing his team around. Didn't seem like the rest of the team had the head with regards to how the team wanted to play, but we wanted to highlight Dan a little bit. First game we've seen him on Rek'Sai, the only game so far on Rek'Sai. Did a pretty decent job, 4-2 and 5.
Yeah, turning away from the Renekton's and going towards the meta. Mountain as well in the bottom lane. He was triple bound and still had a pretty decent game. Last time we saw the Morgana, didn't do so well. This time, 0-2 and 12. Good game by Mountain.
And on the other side of the rift, we want to take a look at Kubon because he got his hands on Irelia. It's one of his favorite champions. Had a decent game, 6-4 and 3 on the stat line, and was trying to keep Overclockers in the game, but ultimately it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, you can only do so much Kubon with that Irelia pick, but he was great on the pick regardless, and we see why that was such a staple for him for so long now. It's just about finding the right times to play it as we get into this one.
And honestly, it's something that I expect to see a lot more out of teams is the split push style. We've heard Sheepy talking about it on the LCS. We had it a lot last week as well, where teams are putting a lot of focus now on trying to get turrets elsewhere on the map, trying to run split push composition, as well as a lot of the poke that we've seen. Right now, we are in quite an open meta when it comes to things, but there are certain picks, certain poke champions that do tend to float above the rest when it comes to picks and bans. And I'm actually looking forward. This will be our now 4th game on 5.13 to see where the picks and bans lies.
Yeah, I do wonder if we actually do see some adaptation from the teams as we get into this, because there was a lot of changes. It changed the landscape of a lot of different roles, but so far the teams haven't changed too much. You're talking about the lane swaps as well. D-Now has done a lot of that. We saw that in previous weeks work out really well for them. Ex-Nihilo tried it this week. We'll talk about that a little later. Didn't work as well, but we've seen teams like have a crack at it and try and make that meta work.
We have. I think the most interesting thing for me was in yesterday's games how high the priority still was on banning Kalista. And as we head into picks and bans, we're going to see that as well, because that's one of the picks that was really adjusted in 5.13. Yeah. Her base, her damage. Okay, let's start this again. Her auto attacks now do not scale off a flat 1 AD of her AD. So it's a weird one because she now gets 90% of her attack damage on her autos, basically, is what happens. So we have expected it to fall down, but yesterday's game she was heavily banned. Yeah,
and that's important because it's from items as well. So an Infinity Edge is not an Infinity Edge for Kalista. It's 90% of an Infinity Edge. They take a little bit off the top. But yeah, Jace coming in as the first ban champion from MOUs will be the first thing aimed at Take Fun. Take Fun has played a lot of Jace, actually. He's actually looked at other picks like TF. Rek'Sai comes out as the next ban towards Dan. Yes, he had a good game on it yesterday, but interesting ban. Ryze as well on the blue side actually comes away from MOUs aimed at Kubon, and then Sivir as the next ban from Overclockers.
We saw a lot of Ryze bans yesterday. We're actually expecting Ryze potentially to be maybe a touch stronger when it comes to the Rod of Ages changes when it comes to his some of his damage output. A little bit less tanky though, perhaps. Haven't really seen all that much Ryze on the new patch, so there are a couple of top lane changes that we're keeping an eye on. Real interesting picks and bans. Twisted Fate now not available for Take Fun. Rek'Sai not available for Dan. Those were champions played in yesterday's games. And honestly, with this Kalista ban, they're actually Overclockers are now daring MOUs to take Corki fairly early on, or they get it from themselves, and we end up in this weird situation where you have to now go try and put something against the Corki. And we haven't yet found out what AD carries are on that next tier when it comes to it.
Yeah, we've seen Warlight just deciding I'm going to pick Tristana every game, but apart for everyone else, every other AD carry, not so much. Yeah, there's the first pick, Corki. We have seen some teams in the LCS stray away from that, not feeling they have to first pick the AD carry now, but either way, this will be the strategy that MOUs are taking in this champion select. Next pick will be Alistar along with the Gragas, just 2 solid picks, 2 beefy tanks.
Yeah, 2 very solid picks. Overclockers knew they were getting 2 strong picks from this. It just depended on whether MOUs wanted to get Dan on something like a Gragas, something that he has played before. In fact, that now goes over to Overclockers. That's a very strong set of frontline champions for Overclockers. But where does it leave Dan? Rek'Sai banned out, hasn't really shown any kind of affinity for Echo He's played Sejuani. That is one option that he could go for. But jungle is not the priority so far for Mouse.
Not yet. It's going to be the Hecarim, probably going on to Beansu here. He's already readied the Ignite and the Teleport, and looking for the Azir as well for Sayo in the mid lane. Had 3 games on that so far, has done very well in each and every one of those games he's actually played. Maybe not in terms of scoreline, but in terms of the damage he's done, in terms of the plays he's made in game, has been really solid for Mouse.
Yeah, I would definitely say he has been a solid Hecarim player. My question is, can he be more than just a solid Hecarim player when it comes to it? Because we have seen a little drop-off for Hecarim in that top lane when it comes to not playing these kind of team compositions with Azir where you're looking to set up a fight, which is what MOUs are going for. So now MOUs pretty much have a very clear plan on what they're going for, more of this team fight-centric rather than any kind of poke composition. The difficulty here is, what do Overclockers go for when it comes to their composition? Because look at how beefy they're going to be. MOUs, as of yet, are going to only be relying on this Azir in the later game to shred through some of the tanks.
Yeah, we've actually seen this from a couple of teams, though, where they just seem to have this, like, single threat in the mid lane. But yeah, we'll see what else MOUs bring to the table. What's for certain, though, Overclockers have picked up their Victor for the middle lane. Been lots of talk, at least between us in the office, about how Victor is super strong now with some of the changes in the mid lane with the items. Maokai as well, also seeing his way back into the meta, just being a great counter, just as running over poke compositions. But we're not actually seeing a poke composition here. We're seeing something different from MOUs.
Yeah, MOUs will, for some aspects of the game, have a fairly long range when it comes to Azir plus Corki, but I'm now, especially with these tanks locked in, I'm expecting the Blade of the Ruined King style Corki, where your focus is less so on the damage coming from rockets and your phosphorus pump, more now adjusted slightly towards auto-attacking alongside that. So that's what I expect. We'll see whether MOUs actually go for that. This set of champions would actually make sense with regards to what they've run before. There's the Sejuani we were talking about for Dan. It's a champion he's run a lot before. Dan, we've talked about again and again. Likes his hard engaged champions, likes his tanks. So this fits him right down to a T. And Mountain, Janna was banned yesterday. Mountain will pick that up for himself. Actually has a 7.5 KDA. 2 and 15 he is currently on Janna in 2 games.
Yes. Dan has played a lot of different junglers. He's played 6 different junglers in 8 games. This is his first with Johnny, so this is the pick he'll go back to as like his fallback. The last pick was Kog'Maw. So where is this going to go? I have to assume AD carry, right?
Yeah.
And it will be up against Corki. And how does that matchup go? Did they even look for a lane swap here?
So at this point, I would imagine Overclockers probably want to swap around. They've not only got Alistar into double range, but now you've got a Corki against a Kog'Maw. So while I kind of expect Celiva to be able to play this matchup, it's certainly not exactly the easiest one. Also, when you kind of look at this, that's a fairly low mobility AD carry when it comes to it. And you've got the likes of a Hecarim, you've got the likes of a Sejuani ultimate. Azir, if they can get the angle on that, may be able to get him. But I'll be honest, you should never really be able to get onto a Kog'Maw like that as an Azir without a big mistake. But it certainly is going to be a tough one for Overclockers to actually make sure that they can protect Celiva. But they do have 3 tanks. They've got Alistar, they've got Maokai, they've got Gragas. Very strong peel. All Celiva's got to do is make sure his positioning is good.
Yeah, make sure he doesn't get hit by the Sejuani ultimate, because if that happens, then it's basically all downhill from there. They still have the Victor threat, but of course you need the constant DPS coming out from the Kog'Maw. Over on MOUs' side, spoke about the hard engage coming in from the Sejuani. Beansu in the top lane, manning the Hecarim once again. Sayo on the Azir. Both had good games on both those champions. Cedrian, we spoke a lot about Cedrian last week when he was going up against Cobby and how much he can do on the team. It seemed like he did a little less, but then like he also had a weak break as well. And
Corki's actually been one of the picks that I feel like Cedrian has done worse on, just in general. I mean, we take a look at the games he played as Kalista, the games he played as Sivir, looked much stronger, just in general. So I now wonder how MOUs are going to play around this Corki, but certainly this should be an interesting game as we go into it. MOUs are looking pretty strong this split. Overclockers, they're yet to get a win.
Yeah, and as we talked about at the start of the show, they actually can't get into playoffs from Overclockers. They're just playing to upset the other teams now. And actually taking a win away from Mouse would be very annoying because the game now is avoid Team Dignitas EU in playoffs. Try and get that second or third spot. If you're in fourth, you're probably not going to have a good time. Think back in Spring Split when people were playing against Origin. It was like, well, Origin are going to be number one. Let's try and not play against them. And that was the goal. But remember, get on Twitter, use the hashtags MOU win or OC win. Tweet at Esports. We'll be checking in on your thoughts as we get into this game and whether Overclockers can upset Mouse and push them further down the rankings and force them into a game against Team Dignitas.
And if they do go into a game against Team Dignitas, I think they'll be kicking themselves if this one slips away from them because, honestly, as you said, nobody right now wants that fate.
Nope. I certainly wouldn't. But we are about to get into this game. Team Mousesports onto the blue side, getting into this one. Now swapping up onto that bottom left corner. Overclockers in the upper right. Great dance by Mouse. That's their war dance before they get into the game. Salver on the Cogmore, manning the Reindeer Cogmore as well. Absolutely perfect. The best play I feel in this situation, Stress.
Well, hopefully let's hope he's not a gift to Mouse if he steps out of position. Otherwise, they might think that Christmas came early. But nevertheless, Mouse, they are gonna. Well, Beansu's opting for the versatile start on Hecarim, where you don't. This has become very commonplace now after the last couple of months, where you don't really start with anything. You don't commit to any full itemization. You just grab that flask, do the first camp, and then back away and see exactly where the lane swaps end up going. We are still kind of expecting a lane swap from Overclockers, but they haven't set that up for themselves quite yet. Yeah,
Libic will be sitting here being the cow ward. He'll see this other ward be placed down, and unfortunately he can't kill it because he didn't go sweeper. But he knows it's there. Mountain knows Libic's there. I'm just going to see the lines of scrimmage at the moment from both these teams. And Libic is going to try and get a deep ward. He knows it's just Mountain, as everyone has just backed away into the middle lane. And he'll be able to get that early information from Dan. Also Binsu as well, just where he's starting. But usually you'll see the Hecarim start on the Merc Wolves if they want to go for a boot start, because the Raptors actually don't give enough gold to go for boots immediately.
Yep. So that will be the start out for Binsu, as you said. But that was quite a... I mean, as you saw, Libic just kind of walk up, drop the ward in, and back himself away. Very brash start to that bottom lane for Libic. But, you know, this game is going to start out standard. And I have to feel like that is going to favor Mouse until you look at Overclockers with regards to Take Fun. Starting off on the Raptors takes the extra experience from himself with the assistance from Kuban's saplings.
Yeah, it's actually a really cool play that you do. You just kind of start at around 1 minute 20, start stacking those up. And interestingly, Kuban's actually going for a camp himself on top of that. Usually you just do one or the other, but he's actually going to wait it out. And in terms of the lane swap, we have none. So Binsu is just picking up that level 2. So is Kuban. They'll be going back to base and then going for the teleport. The main question now is, what does Binsu go? He goes for the boots. That's going to be his level 1 option, and has gone for the W start as well over E.
So this means Kuban is ever so slightly later to the lane, but it doesn't actually have an effect on the experience right now. I do want to keep a track of it to see whether Binsu top lane can push Kuban away. But speaking of push away, in the bottom lane, Cedric and Mountain have themselves presence over the lane and have already pushed back Libic this early on. I mean, this is one of the problems with playing Alistair into double ranged, is if you get zoned like this, you are going to take a fair amount of damage. Tabasco's gone in, did not get the steal, very close on that one though. Tried to smite it away, but ever so slightly. I think it was 15 health remaining on that as Dan managed to get it.
Yeah, Dan didn't even smite in that scenario as well. Tabasco not quite timing it quite correctly, but still putting on a little bit of pressure onto Dan. He's not going to be too unhappy with that scenario. Mid lane note, Take Fun up against Sayo. Has had a pretty good run on his Azir so far. Take Fun has just been adapting to the meta. We saw earlier how his stats from Spring not quite as good now in Summer. Maybe just taking a little longer to change his champion pool.
Yeah, he's a player that I kind of feel like should be in a situation where he changed his champion pool around earlier, but seems to, for whatever reason, still be going with what he knows. But this game overall, this bottom lane is going pretty well here for Mouse when you look at it. They getting good damage down onto Libic. They are ahead in experience, and Celiva was getting zoned away from the minion line as well. So this is opening up a fair amount of presence for Dan to actually go aggressive now onto the blue buff for himself, knowing that Tabasco tried to the counter jungle for himself with only the red buff on, knew that blue buff should be available. This position from the bottom lane has allowed him to get in. Should be able to take this away with no contest.
Yeah, meant that Mountain was able to go up as well in assist of that. Even has extra vision over that jungle. Places down here very aggressive and early pink ward as well into that bottom side of the jungle. Tabasco is going to be slightly behind in this early game, slower to that level 6 before he can start getting those explosive cast ganks off. Bot lane, once again, you mentioned that advantage in terms of being pushed up. Sejuan is still significantly ahead, especially with this wave coming in towards him. Interesting to see if Libic will go for the Triumphant Raw Max, or he'll just carry on going with Headbutt or Pulverize.
And with the wards, they managed to secure themselves just the knowledge that Tabasco was on the lower side of the jungle, so it gave Beansu a little bit of freedom now to kind of push up a little bit more in the top side, make sure he's farming. But Tabasco's got himself around the mid lane. Sayo seems to be aware that it could be happening, but still has his flash, still has barrier. Nothing really to lock him down here in this middle lane, so Tabasco doesn't really have anything going on here. So for the last minute and a half, all he's really got from this is the Gromp. And oh, he walked over the pink ward and didn't even... Oh. Got it.
Hey.
Okay, cool. I mean, he is observant just a little bit. The fat man's a little bit slow to pick up on things.
A little bit groggy
sometimes.
right now. Has been using that Drunken Rage maybe a little too much. Dan puts down the ward, knowing that Tabasco is most likely going to the top side of his jungle and will be taking his Raptors. Dan, though, level 5 versus level 3 Tabasco. And these Raptors are actually doing a lot of work against Tabasco as well. Dan will come in and try and get the aggression down, but the follow with the damage is actually quite significant. Takefun coming in from the middle lane, has the Chaos Storm, follows up with the Death Ray. Doesn't quite land onto Dan as he flashes away, but burns a flash just for the over-aggression from Sejani.
Yeah, and the one thing Dan really should have paid attention to in this situation was in the middle lane. Saya was actually getting shoved in by Takefun. So as much as Dan knew that the jungle matchup should have gone in his favor, it ended up not going it because of the level 4 proc plus the damage that Tabasco got. Takefun was shoving the wave already into Sayu, so there was no way that Sayu can go across to help out in that situation. So Dan was basically in a one-way trip in the jungle. And speaking of which, Beansu takes some damage in the top lane. One way to get to more farm, though, because that's a big wave in front of him.
It is a big wave in front of him, but he's still behind Kuban. And this is a Hecarim into a Maokai matchup. Maokai pretty much just neutralizes the lane by just being Maokai. It's like, okay, I'm going to Q you, and every time you use Rampage, I'm going to heal some more. But still, being behind Maokai is a little bit interesting up there. There's been zero jungler intervention. Actually, no, we did have Tabasco up there very briefly, but still, Beansu wants to be farming a little bit better, perhaps. Even so, that is a lot of farm in the top lane when you look at the timing. Sayo in the mid lane is completely even with Takefun, has gone back to base, picked up the makings of Umbrella Namicon, has the Forbidden Idol, and a Phoenix Codex.
There's a really important thing happening in the jungle, though, at this point. Dan is going to hit level 6 off this red buff. Tabasco is not even at level 5 himself yet, so there is a full level of difference between the two. And consider that Sejuani, once she's 6, obviously has massive amounts more impact than previously. Tabasco won't be able to disengage from this setup if Dan manages to get himself into a fight in the middle lane. So Dan really should be looking to create a gank within the next minute or so, because Tabasco, once he's picked up his red buff, he should be just about narrowing in on that level 6 mark. So it's on Dan to make this level experience actually work for him while he has this kind of ultimate window available.
The window of opportunity. That is a lot of damage from Death Ray. Has augmented that as his first ability. Has the Aftershock coming through as well. Deals a little bit less damage, but still hurts, as you can see on Sayo. Going towards his blue buff, we'll be picking this one away. 8 minutes 30 into this game. Tabasco in the top lane. He is level 5. He is maxing Drunken Rage, which is pretty much what you do nowadays as Gragas, as we had the Q changes. And Kuban is having a fun time using Arcane Smash into Hecarim.
He is. Tabasco will get level 6 off these Krugs. And will have that ultimate available. But bottom lane, it's been a bit quiet since the beginning, since all of that massive amount of damage, but it has translated into a 10 CS lead for Corki. This was kind of what we were expecting when it came to this lane matchup, that just the Cog and the Alistar are going to struggle to output as much damage when it comes to the small trades back and forth in lane. And in fact, look at where Dan's positioned on the map. He's taking out the Scuttle Crab in the bottom side. I was thinking maybe they were going to look to dive the bottom, but don't in fact go for it. It looks like they want to contest the second blue buff, which is exactly what Dan did in yesterday's game. When you look at where the first blood came, it was about this time actually Kubon died trying to contest the blue buff, and all of Tabasco, all of MOUs are here other than top.
Well, you have made a mistake. He's going to be flashing away, looking for the body slam. He gets over the wall, but Zedrian's over the wall as well. He'll be flashing for first blood. Didn't need to flash, but it looked great. And we'll be going towards his blue buff and taking that one away as well. Literally a carbon copy of yesterday, but Tabasco dies instead of Kubon.
And not only is it the blue buff, the same carbon copy because Tabasco died, so it means Dragon is on the cards.
Well,
this is basically the first two plays from yesterday's game between these two merged into one. Catch the jungler, get the Dragon, get the objective, and grab the blue buff for yourself as well. So a really good start out by MOUs, just very consistent, very patient on how they're playing this game out. No need to force things, even though Dan did kind of push in and burn his flash earlier, but that was a minor error.
Patient bear will wait for you. Take Fun, though, was thinking about going back or be stopping that one off. There's a big CS lead in the mid lane from Take Fun, just because Sayo has been reacting to the team plays more than anything. Libic is going into the jungle now, knowing that everyone's gone back from MOUs, using this opportunity to maybe gank mid lane, maybe place down some wards. Not going to gank mid lane because Dan saw him, so the cat will be unhappy and we'll have to go back into the bottom lane and carry on farming with Celiva.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the most subtle of...
no, he's not. As he tramples through the jungle, making a lot of noise, the cowbell ringing as well. But yeah, talking about Celiva, we were talking about him earlier before the game, and also in spring, where he played a lot of like Tristana. He was very much a player who would do well when the team was ahead. He would just accumulate kills. We called him the silent AD carry because he just got ahead. Dan, there's a ward there. He's going for it. He knew.
Oh. Yeah, he did.
He's got it. So Celiva, he was the silent AD carry. But nowadays, when we see the team being behind, he just doesn't do a whole lot. And we saw that reflected as well in his KDA and how much he's been doing for the team.
Yeah, exactly. Although this time you might be able to pick something up because Cedrian, no flash, remember.
Oh, the Pulverize as well. That's a lot of damage onto Cedrian. He'll be Valkying away. There comes the Monsoon for good measure. Maybe not entirely necessary, but as Cedrian did burn his flash earlier, he's better safe than sorry.
Yeah, that... looked like it could have gone better Overclocker's way, but the fact that Mountain was around, just sticking side by side with Cedrian, never too far away. So no dice today for Overclockers for getting anything in that bottom lane. But one thing I kind of want to talk about now that we're on 5.13 was the changes to Righteous Glory. It was actually the reverting of the buff. It got a good few patches away. And we can see a Catalyst on Maokai, but I also can see Dan and Tabasco kind of eyeing each other in the jungle. Yeah, he's good. So, top lane Righteous Glory has been nerfed when it comes to what it actually gives you on the stats. Gives you a little bit less on the health, and the active is now a higher cooldown. So, Kubon is just going to sit on this Catalyst, the Protector, for a while. Has a Warden's Mail on top of it. So something we're kind of expecting to see a lot more is less of the first item, Righteous Glory, more of the kind of get the Catalyst, sit on it, and convert it to Righteous Glory later.
I'll get that later on in the game. And 58% over to Mousesports, 42% for Overclockers. Actually surprisingly high for Overclockers considering their current record and the game yesterday. But yeah, Overclockers have definitely looked better, but they've still been a level below everyone else.
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair to say, which is unfortunate because, as we said, how good they were in spring.
Yeah.
Remember, this lineup was Reason Gaming that played in the promotion tournament. Didn't go so well for them on the promotion tournament, but it certainly was... I mean, that was the game that they played against Giants. They actually did pick up one game, so it wasn't horrendous for them. It just seems between spring and summer, something just hasn't really settled itself, and right now, Overclockers find themselves without a win.
they've also been like a staple of the Challenger series as well. Like, I can't actually think of a time where Overclockers or Reason Gaming or Love on the Shore or whatever they've been called has not been a part of the Challenger games and what you've been seeing.
I think part of the problem here, though, is they've really struggled with not only changing what I assume is their part of their shot calling with their jungler being changed around, but also Take Fun is just not in his element in the current meta. You talked about it earlier. He's not able to play assassins, so he has to play other champions. You can see him on the Victor here, which is not really an assassin in any stretch of the imagination. No. I mean, sure, you can 100-0 somebody by putting that Chaos Storm on top of someone's head and death raying them down, but certainly it is not the same as the Zed, the LeBlanc that we saw out of Take Fun previously. So it just seemingly just hasn't adapted yet, and it's a big problem for Overclockers if they even want to hope to look to compete anywhere, really.
Yeah, it's like Forgiven was saying, you know, a good player is a player who adapts, and Overclockers, if they're only ever a team who does well when the ebb and flow of the meta goes their way, then they have a ways to go in being a good team. But when the meta is on their side, they do well, so they have half of it down at least.
I mean, one of my biggest issues, I think, with Overclockers this split has been that they've just not been proactive in any sense of the imagination. I will forgo one game on that. The game against Team Dignitas that we broadcasted, where they had a big lead to begin, about 5,000 gold lead, one of the real times that Team Dignitas have been behind. But then they just slowed down and stopped really doing anything on the map, and I feel like that's what they've done in so many games. This early game, they've just not been doing anything. They've been playing not to lose, rather than actively playing on the map to win. You can see Mouse just gets another blue buff. This is the second of the game, and Dragon is spawning in 35 seconds as well. And Overclockers right now don't seem to be able to do anything to actually deter Mouse from taking that objective.
The other thing is, like, Overclockers will be playing Ex Nihilo next week as well. And that's a matchup where that will very much highlight that issue, because Ex Nihilo will just run at you, and Overclockers, it depends on how they react to that situation. Because if they are able to do something, then at least they still have the strength, and it's important moving forwards into the next split if they qualify again. But back onto this game, Cedrian and the Mountain in this bottom lane with Dan waiting in the wings for this gank. He's level 10 now, still waiting to use his ultimate to get a stun down. Initiated by Livik, and Dan will take this opportunity to go in, comes in with the Arctic Assault, gets the ultimate down for the lock onto Livik. He'll be using his ultimate here, and he'll be backing away and walking into the bush. So a little bit too tanky, very difficult to burst down an Alistar with Unbreakable Willow. Yeah,
Mountain and the rest of Mouse at this point. Oh, Mountain's going to check into Tabasco. Doesn't really want to fight though, so Tabasco backs away. Mouse, we're kind of playing that as if to say that Dan's not here, and we're hoping that Celiva kind of moved forward so he'd get hit by that ultimate too. Didn't end up panning out that way, and now with the Sichuan ultimate not available, Overclockers are actually going to look to position for the Dragon at this point. See whether Dan can do anything about it. Does have Smite up, does have the level advantage as well, only by 1. It's a difference of level 9 and level 10. Can Dan steal? No, he cannot.
And Tabasco will be out of there, getting the permafrost down though, but can Miles get anything on the retreat? Beatsu in from the top lane, uses the ultimate, gets the kill onto Celiva as an exit kill. Oh! Wow. Mountain, he's out of there.
Just gets away. A real key thing in this fight. Beansu in the fight. Kubon not in the fight. Was sat in base with teleport available. I really want to see whether there was an opportunity for Kubon maybe to get himself into this fight, because there were wards around for Overclockers. Maybe they're not in the most opportune of positions, but certainly Kubon could have looked to get in the fight. I guess we'll catch that if a replay comes up of that, but certainly Beansu managed to get himself onto Celiva. As we said in Champion Select, that's what Beansu's job is right now. Get onto the backline, take out that Cogmore, make sure that Overclockers can't put out any damage.
Yeah, gone for the Ignite as well, just to help with that cause. He's in the top lane here against Kubon. This will be an interesting trade, as Kubon will Q Beansu, and Beansu will Q Kubon. And they'll lose some health, and then Kubon will get all his health back with Sap Magic.
Yeah, Beansu is able to get some of his health back, but this chase is continuing, because Tabasco got himself up into that top lane. And mid tower did fall meanwhile, though, as Victor had just constantly pushed Sayo in. So it was kind of to be expected, but now Sayo can, at some point, just put a Sundisk up and go, haha, my tower is back.
Yeah. It will decay, but for now, at least I have a tower.
Mean, it'd be a bit OP if it did.
I just have my tower back.
Here comes the ult, though, from Tabasco.
And right into Kuban as well with the lockdown. Immediately lands the shift and the lock onto Bean Super. He's actually running away here. Will be flashing away and dead.
Yeah, I mean...
Flashing after.
Oh, mid lane.
And he's getting punted over the wall. Actually, maybe out of the range of... No, never mind. Dan's got his ultimate. He's just going to kill him with the ult.
Not many times you see the ult just being used to kill on that one. Didn't need it for the entire play. But overall, so that's a kill traded in the top lane. Kill traded in middle lane with turrets likely to go down. Yeah, that one will go as well. So overall, it's a fairly even trade. Keep in mind, Overclockers did get a mid tower as well. Now it's bottom lane. There's an engage.
Yeah, Lipic engages with very low HP. He'll be using the Unbreakable Will, but it's still being chased down by Mountain, who is now turning away because the teleport's coming in from top lane. Did manage to get the Twisted Advance onto Mountain, but he is able to blast them away with the Monsoon, and with that extra movement speed, is able to kite away from Kuban. Cedrian is a little aggressive, but he's able to make it work against the retreating Maokai, who will be going out of here. So overall 3-1 in terms of kills, 1-1 in the Dragons, but the slight advantage in terms of towers to Overclockers. But despite that, the gold advantage is over to Mouse. Let's take a look at the mid lane again.
Yeah, this is the mid lane. No need for the Sejuani ultimate yet, but Takefun actually bounced up and over the boar on that one. As looked like he connected with Dan and kind of hopped off.
Yeah.
So... interesting one on the middle lane, but Dan was trying not to use his ultimate. Kill for all, worth.
100% worth. Celeber taking rockets to the face, definitely not worth in the bottom lane. Sayo, though, has just passed over a ward and is trying to get the gank onto the bottom lane. There is a pink wall there, but Cedric might just kill the bot lane by himself and just walk away. Celeber just stayed around too long.
This is a really weird play by Celeber when you look at it. As you said, the TLDR of it is he stayed around too long. He had the information that his tower was dying, plus there was an incoming Azir, plus they were just there in the middle lane anyway. Why would you stay that close on a Cogmore with no flash, no heal? Like, that decision does not make sense in any realm of possibility.
Yeah, lag. I honestly don't know. It was a very odd play from Celeber. Overall, yeah, we just haven't seen Overclockers on an individual level as well between the players, just not on their game compared to what we've seen in previous seasons from them.
I do, however, like the play that Kuban made down in the bottom lane, trying to get onto the Corki and the Janna with a teleport. I think it was a good attempt, knowing that they had teleport advantage, knowing Beansu couldn't get himself down there. So Overclockers are starting to try and do things, but they're just coming up short every time.
Yeah. Also, the dragon play was actually good. They got the dragon for a kill. So, and that was also a proactive play from... actually, well, it was more of a reactive play since Mouse went back and, yeah, they capitalized on it. But still, Overclockers do make good decisions, just sometimes poorly executed. It's the other decisions that counteract that. Right.
And I feel like there are certain times where they just don't make decisions, which in itself, I guess, is a decision in itself, because you've got two options. You can do something or you can do nothing.
Yeah.
And if you do nothing, I guess that's your decision made. But certainly Overclockers, I feel like, just generally throughout when we've seen them in Challenger as Reason, they always had decent macro level decision making, but for some reason, part of that has kind of fallen off, and sometimes there's this reluctance for them to actually utilize it. And one of the things that has really highlighted this split is kind of the tiers of decision making within Challenger. Team Dignitas right at the top, because we actually feel like they have good decision making just in an overall sense. Then there's kind of like our second place teams in the standings, where you've got Mouse Gamers 2 and
then at the bottom it's just tears streaming down their face.
Yeah, where there's just almost no real coherent decision making, at least. So it's a weird one. We'll see if Overclockers can fix these issues, though.
Miles, though, looking better from week to week, at least. Just making a good decision, pushing down the mid lane, bringing up the Sun Disc, even shielding Cedric just so he can get that last auto attack off on the turret to do a little bit more damage. Beansu split pushing in the bottom lane against the Maokai has actually now increased his CS and is actually now overtaking Kuban. Sayo now is backing away here. And backing into his team, he's going on to the Dragon. Overclockers was a decision. They actually close in around this Dragon to try and contest, but just too late to the punch. They would have heard that. And do not actually decide to push a lane, because now they're going into the mid lane, but they could have done that from the get-go and maybe at least gotten some damage onto the turret. Now Mouse are actually backing off, and they had the position, but after all of that, they essentially trade the Dragon for a wave in mid lane.
Yeah, I think it would have been tough for them to get any damage on the middle turret. It kind of was sat flat in the lane, a little bit pushed in towards them, but to be honest, there's not a lot that Overclockers could have done when that Dragon went down, because, I mean, you look at how their waves are set up. Top lane ever so slightly pushed in towards them, bottom lane ever so slightly pushed in towards them as well. I mean, unless you send somebody out to one of those lanes to try and push it, which is a dangerous play on itself, there's nothing really to gain in that situation if you're in the Overclockers camp, which bodes well for MOUs. They have a good lead for themselves. That's basically an uncontestable objective in their pocket as well. Now MOUs have to answer the question of what's their next play, because it's now down to inner towers for them, which is going to be fairly difficult to clear out by the fact that there is going to be a Victor sat in one lane. Kog'Maw in the other is not the best wave clear, but Sayo...
Oh, body slam, flash into the knockback, into the Chaos Storm, into the kill onto Sayo. Just catching him out. Sayo was just thinking he had the kill onto Take Fun and was not able to get the rest of his damage off before Tabasco helped him. So, yeah, nice pick there. MOUs actually do not feel phased by that at all, since they just walk into the middle lane as a group and carry on doing what they would have done anyway.
Yeah, I honestly, looking at that play, I thought Sayo was going to back away. He had his ult, had his flash.
Right, tried.
Yeah, I mean, he did try. I was just kind of expecting him. He got good damage down onto Take Fun, but Take Fun kind of traded it back. Interesting play out by Overclockers here, in the fact that this is them contesting a blue buff, but do they have the presence to do it? Dan is on his way. Cedra and a Mountain are here. They will get it. Now the question is, do they get out? Because Binsu is incoming up the river. Now it's a 2 versus 4 when Dan can get there. 3 if you count in Celiva.
Oh, he gets the flash from Celiva, now goes on to Levick. He's already low enough that an ult will not really save him. Sejuan comes in with the last rocket. He's going to survive for a little while longer, but he's just going to allow the rest of the team to escape. Well, maybe not, because Dan's here with the ultimate to lock down Tabasco. They get that kill as well. Kuban now comes into the fight, but maybe 20 seconds too late. Takefun's here to try and even up the odds. Does he have Chaos Storm in a few seconds? He does, but it's too late. That was a 2-0 going over to Mousesports.
These are some really weird teleports coming out by Kuban when you look at how he engages where he should be teleporting in. Kuban wanted the Home Guards proc on his boots, so he finished his recall and teleported into the fight when his team were already basically dead. At this point, Tabasco not here. This should be a very easy Baron for Dan to smite away. MOUs are in full control of this game.
Yeah, now they have full control over this game. They've had control over this game for a while. And Dan is going to take this crab as well. He really wants that crab. 56 gold in the bank. Boom. 3 towers to 2 in this game. Baron gone over to MOUs, 2 and 1 in Dragons. Now have the gold advantage as well. 7,000 gold. You can see a bunch of items being picked up. Bean Soup, standard, gone for the Triforce. Into the Spirit Verge because there's a lot of magic damage from Overclockers. Pretty much standard all over the board coming in from MOUs. You can see the Death Cap and Morellonomicon from Sayo. Not seeing a huge deviation in terms of builds.
Although, we may be about to see one on Sayo.
Why is that?
Is the makings of a haunting, guys. It's the makings. Could still go other places. I'm not going to jump the gun too far. I'm not going to jump the gun too quickly, but certainly it's an item that has been making things
very quiet. Overclockers are setting up a play.
Tricky in the middle lane. Oh, Libic, he's caught Sayo.
He has, but maybe Sayo's caught the rest of the team, as there is now a Sundus there, and there's the ultimate in from the Swajani as well. Locks down Kuban and Libic. Libic will be paying the price, and Celiva tries to get the damage onto the Sundus before it can do more damage to his teammates. A 1-for-1 in the mid lane, and the push now continues from MOUs, who have the Baron buff minions. They'll be pushing even further. Takefun still has his ultimate though, so MOUs may have to be a little careful on the aggression. Binsu in the bottom lane, no one to contest him. He'll just take this bottom turret.
No teleport on Kuban as well, so no real way of getting the Maokai out onto the map and getting himself into the fight. So MOUs are going to group in the top side as well. Now Kuban's shown bottom lane, so they know they have the numbers advantage here. It's still a matter of time before Libic and Takefun get there, but this minion wave did die fairly quickly. Look at how Celiva's taking damage, though. Look
how Sejuan's also taking damage from Celiva, but they are able to clear out this minion wave, and that was enough aggression from Overclockers to deter the push from MOUs. Libic trying to chase after here. Will be clearing away this ward. Sejuan will be throwing a rocket. And bottom lane, Kuban chasing after Beansu. Won't be able to kill him, but we'll be able to clear out this minion wave just to stop the push more than anything. Tabasco also there to back him up just in case.
Yeah. So I'm actually interested, speaking again about the AP itemization, because it's one of the big things that changed on 5.13. So Haunting Guys picked up. I imagine, obviously, that Liandry's Torment is going to be picked up at some point. The question is now, how quickly does Sayo pick up Liandry's Torment? Because he's now against 3 tanks. So it's going to help him burn through tanks. And to be honest, a lot of the itemization with regards to magic damage, items like Sonya's Hourglass, like Luden's Echo, kind of the actual damage output was normalized to not being the 120 AP items. Drop down in AP, but it's now all about the utility. So I wonder how quickly, as I said, Sayo is going to finish off the Liandries to chunk through some of the health here, because he's not opted for something like Azonia's Hourglass. He's opting for more damage just overall against these tanks.
Yeah, very much about building an item because of what the item does, rather than building it because it's got a bunch of AP and I want to kill people. Yeah,
well, saying that, he's got a Rabadon's Death Cap, which did get an increase on AP when it comes to the amount that it's giving you of bonus. Now 35% instead of 30. So a nice little added
sick value
touch. Although, to be honest, when talking with some of the other casters here, we were kind of expecting maybe a touch later into the game, maybe a 3rd item on some champions, but certainly working well for Sayo when it comes to his damage output.
That's true. On Ezreal, though, he will build it after his Runeglaive. We have been seeing that from specifically Senkook so far. Cedrian, though, in the top lane, the classic split push Corki, going in here, try and get some damage onto Salva, and more importantly, his turret mid lane. I want to save Corbinsu, but he's also Hecarim, so he'll be getting away. The 1v1 trade in the top lane. Salva will be pushed behind his turret. Takefun is there to back him up. Tabasco coming in to lend a hand. And Livik, he wants to help, he wants to flank, he wants to do something, but he's not going to get the gank.
He isn't. Looking at things, Mouse, they knew they had the numbers advantage for a while, couldn't quite push onto the turret because that Victor just is able to clear out the minion waves, and Mouse didn't exactly have a big minion wave to begin with on this trade. So they're going to try it again with the next wave coming in, but it means Selva has got all of his health back as well, but Selva doesn't exactly have the most amount of damage when it comes to his itemization. Still has a fair amount that he's outputting against the squishier targets, but against the likes of Dan, I struggle to see how much damage he's actually going to do here, because Dan has 3 items completed, though he has got a fair amount of magic resist, not the most amount of armor overall.
Yeah, if Selva can get in range, he'll do a lot, but that depends if Beansu's already on top of his face, mauling him alive as Hecarim. Again, Livik, looking for the flank. I am tracking the cow.
Track the horse too. The pony's on the side. In comes the tree as well. Teleport.
Everyone's coming in for this party. Kuban looking for the fight, but Dan's going to lock them down first. Tabasco over the wall. All the disruption. Cedrian will have to exit the fight post-haste, but Takefun will be backing off to his turret while Beansu is trying to get the kill down. Sayo is still alive. There's the Emperor's Divide, but it only lands onto Kuban. Actually, we do see Salva and Takefun taken down in the aftermath of that damage. Kuban now back into the fight, but a little too late to save Tabasco, and that's the triple kill coming in for Sayo.
With no carries left available, Overclockers have absolutely no damage to close this fight that they seem to start fairly well off. But as you said, Takefun and Selva managed to, well, ended up falling in that one. Beansu couldn't quite find Selva at the start of the fight, but Mouse managed to find them to end it, and that is going to be an inhibitor down as well now in favor of Overclockers. Not a lot they can do here other than just chase them out of the base.
Yeah, just going to have to clear away these minion waves and be reactive. Being forced into this position. Mount's going to go back to base here. We're going to see a replay of that last fight, though, now that all set up.
Yeah, so keep your eyes on Selva. Keep your eyes on Takefun. Beansu's looking for the ult, but he can't quite get the angle because it means going into the turret until he finds Takefun instead. That is as juicy a price. Selva also got kind of bumped forward in that fight. From here, Sayo is fairly open to just kind of just output damage for the rest of this fight. No real carries means that he might get locked down here or there, but nobody can actually take him off this this fight. It's an easy cleanup for Mouse.
It was indeed. 10-4 in terms of kills. Significant gold lead, 12,000 over to Mouse. The 7 towers as well. The dragons are going over to Mouse. Like, literally in every single category, Mouse are ahead of Overclockers right now. Baron has just spawned. No doubt Mouse will be going for that. And Overclockers are going to have to do something. but with that top inhibitor down, it's making it harder and harder for them to make a play.
It really is. Although one thing that, you know, it is a beacon of hope for Overclockers in this game. Take Fun is actually doing just about as well as... Ooh, Libic did take a lot of damage in the jungle. Take Fun is doing just about as well as Sayo is when it comes to his overall gold income. They're both set at about 12,000 gold. A lot of the reason is because Overclockers Take Fun has this massive amount of CS lead. He's clearing a lot of waves just kind of as Mouse push them in. But the evening up of that, Sayo's has got a lot of global gold. And it's come from the objectives, it's come from the towers. And now add to not only that gold total, but now the buff total for Sayo. We'll be able to add the Baron buff to make sure they can push in the waves.
Yeah, add that one to his collection. And 3, 2, and 4, Sayo currently. Just another good run as a Zia. Has gone for that Leandries now. That is completed on those triple items. Tabasco and Saliva desperately trying to clear out these minions. There is a Kubon there, but maybe Kubon's caught. He will be using Righteous Glory. Will be jumping onto the onto Binsu rather, but he's been knocked back with the Emperor's Divide. Sayo actually puts himself on the other side of the Emperor's Divide and gets taken down by Overclockers. Binsu looking for the re-engage here. Can he get it? No.
Can't find Saliva, but Saliva found Sayo in that fight. Now
Binsu. He's getting the power transfer, gets the movement speed as well, not quite in range. Lots of movement speed from the E, and the Howling Gale from Mountain will be keeping Overclockers back, but that was an unsuccessful push from Mouse.
Keep your eyes on Cedrian though, because in this middle lane, the fact that the minions in the top lane have already taken the Nexus turret actually allows Mouse to regroup, because Libic and Take Fun are slightly split off from the rest of their team. Here comes the teleport in from Binsu, should have that home guard available. Can he get into this fight?
Down is low, but so is Libic. He'll be falling here. Tabasco trying to be the front line for his team for Take Fun and Saliva. They're trying to get in range to put their damage out, but can't quite do so. Middle inhibitor turret fell, and while that entire fight was happening before, the Nexus turret fell as well for Overclockers. So even while they're able to get semi-good fights, Maus just win anyway because of the advantage they've built up by taking those base structures.
And not only that, now they get their 4th dragon of the game as well. Maus are in an absolutely dominating position in this game. 4 dragons, 9 turrets, 12 kills over 5. And it's just these same kind of team fights happening again and again. This one was a little different because of Saliva being able to get his damage out onto Sayo. But as you said, kind of catches himself out with the Emperor's Divide, completely cuts himself off from the rest of the team. But then Beansuit gets chunked pretty hard and has to back. But it's enough time that they've bought that the turrets ended up falling in favor of Mouse anyway.
Yeah. Overclockers, the time is ticking. I feel like they're going to be falling fairly soon. There comes the Sun Disc. We'll be applying the extra pressure in the mid lane. Tabasco looking for another flank. That's what Overclockers have been doing well, looking for the flanks in this game. Whether they've actually worked out is another matter entirely, but Tabasco will get the flank regardless. Let's see how much it does for this fight. Not a lot, because it was disengaged by Mouse using that Janna. Binsu trying to get in range of Take Fun, will be using the Onslaught of Shadows and stomps him down, taking out the major damage threat from Overclockers. Now it's only Saliva to deal the damage, and that's going to lock him up, and all the damage in from Sayo will be taking him out. Now it's just the triple tanks against Mouse's lineup, and there's not a lot they can do about it. The tree will be retreating, the cow is in full retreat as well, and now there's only Gragas to stand between Mouse and picking up this victory, and there's not a whole lot he can do about it. There's the second Nexus falling, or the second Nexus turret falling, and this will be the Nexus itself going down. Mouse securing this week 2-0. Overclockers still yet to nest a single win.
It is not a good start, or even finish, to this split for Overclockers, but it has been a good split overall for Mouse. When you look at things, their results have been night and day compared to how they did in spring. Honestly, you know, they changed their lineup a little bit. They fixed a couple of their issues by the looks of things, and they're looking pretty strong overall. I honestly think that this playoffs race is not the same kind of playoffs race we had last time. I still think this is kind of like a 3 or 4 horse race, maybe.
But you've then got to compare them to the other competitors trying to secure the places below Team Dignitas EU, because you look at Denial and Gamers 2. Do Mouse look as good as those two teams? Have we seen that yet?
I would argue yes, actually. Especially the 2nd through 4th spots. I actually feel like Mouse can contend with those teams on the best of days, and I even think that Team Dignitas on their if they're looking shaky, I don't think is out of the question for MOUs. I think it's a tough game, but I certainly don't think that there's this massive, massive disparity between all of the teams.
Well, it's an interesting question, and we would actually like to ask Sayo that. So we do have Sayo on the line to talk about that victory there. Hey, Sayo, how's it going?
Hello. It's fine. Obviously happy about the win.
Yeah, looked very convincing in that one, Sayo. Again, you played the Azir and did super well on that 4-3 and 8. We were just chatting about how you guys compare up to basically everyone else in the playoffs race now. Where do you think you stand up against Denial and Gamers 2?
I actually think the difference between us and Denial and Dignitas is not that big, even though there's still a difference. I think there's still the chance that we can take a game from them. And yeah, but if you look at the standings, I think you can put us at the 3rd place, around where we are anyways right now. So yeah, that's basically what I think. Yeah,
I feel like that's a very fair statement to make. I want to talk specifically a little bit about mid lane with you. We were playing on patch 5.13. How has the 5.13 changes affected the mid lane champions in your eyes?
I think it's actually very good, because the thing with mid lane now is that you can actually go to base quicker and get that large rod, and even have more options with the items you can build out of it. And that actually helps you a lot in the mid lane, since before it was like, okay, if he gets a needlessly large rod on a base, and if you don't, he's a lot stronger than you are, and that's not how it is anymore. And I think that's very good for the mid lane. And also the item choices became a lot better. Obviously the Liandry's got buffed a lot, and the same with Rylai's, especially for Azir. It's awesome, since every auto attack applies 40% slow, and the combination is just great.
Well, staying with the topic of the meta discussion, you spoke a lot about items, but do you think we're going to see any changes in terms of the picks we're seeing? Because so far, we haven't seen any of the challenger teams make a change.
Yeah, I think a lot of picks are can become very viable now, since especially with the Liandry's item and the Rylai's item, a lot of new champions benefit from it. And I can give you an example of maybe Zyra, who's very good with those new items, or maybe even champions like Brand or Malzahar. You can see them, since they have ridiculous damage with the new item, but they still have the problem of being immobile. So I still think that champions like Azir or Ezreal in the mid lane are top tier in this patch, but this might change in the next patch, since Azir is also getting nerfed in the PvE, and then we might see some newer picks which benefit from the new items, the Rylai's and the Liandry's, and yeah. So mid lane's going to be exciting soon.
I certainly am looking forward to those changes kind of filtering through. Last question for you, Sayo. Next week, you guys face Denial in what is going to be a real close and interesting game, I feel.
Yes.
Do you feel like putting a prediction forward to what the scoreline will be next week?
Honestly, it could go either way. Like, it could go 2-0 for them, 2-0 for us, or 1-1. But I think they have a small edge over us, and but I'm still going to say it's going to be 1-1.
Well, fantastic. Still staying humble there, Sayo. Great performance in this game. Congratulations once again on the win. I'll be talking to you more next week.
Thanks.
There you go. I am so looking forward to these mid lane changes to filter through.
I know, he's talking about Malzahar. I'd love to see that in the mid lane.
Also, Brand, there's discussions of
seen some of that
champions we never see. Yeah, I agree. We played an in-house game the other day, and I got rolled by Brand. So that was
true story. But yeah, we also wanted to take a look at Cedrin in that game. He went 7-0 and 8. He did 41.5 thousand damage in that game. That was 16.7k more than Celiver on a Cogmore, who never really got to late game, but still very impressive when it came to him this game.
To put that in perspective, the guy we just talked to, Sayo on Azir, he did 26.5k. So that's quite a lot more damage than a mid laner with all of these OP items that Sayo was just talking about. So items not so OP. All you got to do is play Corki.
Yeah, you've just got to be Cedrin. That's all you need to do.
Then again, he did kind of just hit tanks all day.
That's true. Yeah.
There's a lot of health to chunk through.
Yeah. Either way, Cedrin, great play. That's game 1 in the books. So we've got to stock up before we take our abyssal voyage to the break. We'll see you on the other side.